Leave it, Ellen.
Well, we're recording and welcome everybody. It is the December 1st. We are in a new month. Woo! December 1st meeting of the Perfect Connections. It's great to see everyone. And just as a reminder, I sent out the note, but we'll have this meeting and then next week meeting on the 8th. And then after that, I'm going to be out of the country for about a month. But we have also the holidays in there and everything. So exactly which dates, I mean, the link will be there so people can use it if you want to, but I won't be around to facilitate between the 15th and the 8th. I don't know what date that was in January, but anyway, but I hope, you'll be able to continue to talk and all that, but I'll do my season greetings or well wishes to you all next week. Meanwhile, let's go around. Again, I'm Susan Walker, formerly, I guess, from the University of Minnesota, although I have to say the longer I'm in retirement, the more rear view mirror, like my professional life seems to be. So as we go around, please let us know if there's something you'd like to talk about or share, or a resource or something that you'd like to, oh, Sandy, look at you. Let me turn to Sandy then, and she can introduce herself.
Sounds good. I'm Sandy Salter. I'm an ECFE parent educator in Fairmont. I'm also finishing my master's and official license at the U right now. And what I just put in the chat looks like some great answers to those questions about notes, except for it says like click new to start a new note. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't see that in mine. So it looks like they maybe have some glitches to work out. I don't think it's us is what I'm saying. So I will call on Katie.
All right. Can you hear me? I was chatting with my sweet little coworker here, so I didn't quite hear the direction. Was it just introduce? No, you're good. She's all worried. You're good. Just introduce, and
she
then
could join the meeting too, Katie. She's always
she's so sweet. She's this little artist, and she's working on this cute little Christmas display. So she freehand drew like a Grinch and a Cindy Lou and a little sign and all the letters, and it's just going to be so cute. So we're lucky to have her talent.
Can you move your monitor?
Oh, yeah.
So we could see it in progress.
Well, it's not in here. She's just cutting out some stuff, but
okay.
I'll take a picture when it's done and I'll send it to I'll email it to the group. How's that?
Sounds great. Sounds good.
So sorry, just introductions. Was there anything else?
And anything if anything you'd like to talk about today or ask the group?
Yeah, so I'm Katie. I'm a parent educator in Jordan, and nothing too pressing. Maybe just if there's anything special you do over the holidays with your lessons. Like I think we're talking about holidays next week. Is there anything you like to ask the parents or bring into your lessons this time of year? If we have time to get to it, if not, it's okay too. So let's see, I will call on Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. I am a parent educator, home visitor with Osseo Area Schools. Yeah, I am those of you who've been on past calls with me, I'm working a lot with Ecuadorian refugee families. And finally, I think we're making progress to finding the right supports. And I've learned a lot about our social services systems and what we can offer families who don't qualify for anything. So if you ever find yourself in that space in your work, I think I'll have some resources to share. Greta.
Hi, I'm Greta Nelson, and I work as a parent educator in Cambridge ISANI schools. I wear several other hats, but this is why I'm here, is for parent ed. And I do have a question I'd love to hear from the group who's here today. if you do PLCs and what they look like, we are just starting in our district and they've given us a record keeping thing and a format of what questions to be asking, and they just don't seem to be working. So I'd love to hear if there's somebody else that has been doing it and what you're doing and if it's how it's working. Just curious. That's all. And I'm going to choose Carissa.
I'm Carissa, parent educator in Mounds View. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot, a specific question. I'm kind of a challenging mom, but I think Greta's question is good and probably take a while. So we can focus on that. Maybe next week I can bring up my mildly challenging mom.
Oh, I think we should talk about your mom. I do. Don't disregard yourself.
Well, okay. This is the second year I had her non-separating last year, separating this year. She talks a lot. I'm very happy to have other staff to help support her this year. She's also dyslexic, which I think she told me last year, but we never did any writing things. So then I tried to do I don't do a lot of writing, but I tried to do a writing thing. And she was very fine. I mean, she was fine. She was totally open. So she came up to where I sit and she was like, well, I'm dyslexic, so I need you to do this with me, which on the one hand, great. I mean, it was fabulous that she was advocating for herself. But then it took a lot to support her through that. And I tried to kind of go through, it was like a family survey thing and like at my topic inventory. And it took a lot to get through because she can't stay focused. She's telling me the story, every story. And so now I'm really afraid to do anything that involves writing with that group, which I feel like that is like, I don't want the rest of the group to suffer, which is a vast overstatement, of course, but so I was like, wow, I wasn't ready for this at all. So that's kind of like, that's my wondering. And I'll call on Julie.
I'm Julie. I'm parent educator in Owatonna and I don't really have any things to talk about today. So just here to join in. And I think I'm the last one, right?
I think you are. Julie. Thank you. Chris, I'm going to come back to you. Could you put your in the form of a question? Because I was listening
Instead of
about the mom and about the writing and then being afraid to come back to the writing. So because I immediately in my head, I got into like problem solving mode and then I realized I didn't know what problem I was solving for you, or which is awful to say because I'm not solving anything for anybody. But just could you like just restate so we can support you?
I guess I'm just not sure how to handle it going forward and like I said, I don't do a lot of writing things, so it's not that big of a deal, but so like the one thing I think I shared at the end of last year, I do these little people sheets, which is just like a snapshot in time of what their kids' favorites and what they're saying, what they're doing, how they play. I didn't do it because I had that planned for after this stuff. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So like the rest of the group is missing out on doing my little people sheets, which I then collect and we revisit them. That's how I end the year. We do another one. We talk about the growth over the year. So it's kind of a thing. It's not a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal. And the rest of the group is missing out on it. Now I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to do with that one group that I was too afraid to do my little people sheet with. I just don't know how to handle writing things.
Does she have access to technology? Can you send it to her ahead of time so she has time to process and write ideas out ahead of time?
That's a good idea. She did say something like, because if you don't help me, then I have to get out my something. And I didn't quite catch what it was. And she's like, and that's just, it must have been something that talks to her. So she didn't want to do that in the middle of class. So I could try to do it. That's a good point. I could try to do it ahead of time.
How did she let you know that she had dyslexia? Did she just kind of,
Yeah,
tell you-
she just
Okay.
said, and like I said, I had her last year, and I know she's like, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, and so that day she just came up and she's like, I think she thought she had told me, and I couldn't quite remember, but she was like, you remember I have dyslexia. So I mean, and like she was not, which was great. She was just like matter of fact, and
open about it?
yeah, just totally open. Everybody in the class could hear, and she wasn't like trying to whisper to me or anything like that. So, I mean, that was great, but then I just didn't know.
Could you just kind of do it alongside her and could you write it for her? Would she be okay with that or?
Well, that's what I did with not anticipating this, with the ones I had planned to do that day. That's what we ended up doing. But like with my little people, she would probably spend 10 minutes telling me about the favorite book, and then she'd have to spend 10 minutes telling me about the favorite food, and then she'd have to spend 15 minutes telling me about the favorite, and it would take us 3 class periods of me not paying any attention to the rest of the families and she's really, it was challenging that day. Yeah. And I know I can't do that during class time. It was just a lot.
That's
It's
hard.
just, it very much threw me for a loop, or like caught me off guard that day because I wasn't ready for that, which it was fine. I mean, in the end, it was fine, but maybe just ahead of time is the way to go. Give it to her if I have it electronically, or just make sure I know I'm planning far enough ahead that I can give her a paper copy the week before. And okay. I hadn't really thought about that part. Okay, thank you. We can move on.
Interesting.
I was trying to think of what's something else besides reading and writing that you can do for the same topic that is mostly just auditory or something, but it's reading through it and processing it out loud for the whole group. But she still then needs to write. Is that
Right, yeah.
okay? I'm not coming up with anything specifically.
No, I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, Carissa, it's challenging. I think that with, it sort of pushes us into that sort of good professional development stretch of accommodations that we're most of the time we don't need, and then all of a sudden we do, but we haven't been trained in it, or maybe we were many years ago, or we did accommodations for a particular student, but the accommodations for that student are very different than what this particular student needs. And then students are very different in terms of their own sort of resourcefulness, and where they'll come to you and say, I'm all good, this is what I need from you, and then others that are like, it's kind of up to you to help me manage in this class, and it's kind of sink or swim. So yeah.
Which leads to a really good question, Carissa. What have you asked her? What she would appreciate, or how she'd want you to go say in the future when I have something.
Yeah.
I know this does, I want to honor your processing, right? And
Right.
this is a group. Are there strategies you use? Are there things that is there something I could do that might make this really mutually beneficial for everybody, and including you, so you're not missing out, but also not, I don't know how much you go into, but do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Ask.
Right. That's a good thought. Like, what is there things I can support you?
How can I support?
Essentially?
Yeah.
If we do have another writing task.
Yeah. If we have another writing task, how would you like to approach it? Or, what can I do?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Something away from the moment.
Right.
Dysregulated child, like away from the moment. And then we go back and say, and then, how did that work for you? How did that, what else?
Yeah. And you're right, Susan. I feel like I've been running like not English as a second language families. There's just a lot more where in our district anyway, and as a parent ed, I don't feel like I have resources, and should be like really good stuff out there with technology now, but I don't have resources to support those families.
Yeah.
It just seems to come up more and more and more. And professional development is right where it needs to come in.
Yeah, you know, and I find always this big difference too between resources and training that are available for children with special needs versus adult with special needs, right? And when you are somebody who works with adults and you teach adults and you interact with adults, I think there's this false assumption that the adults are going to they're going to know what they need, or they're going to know how, whatever, or maybe because they're more financially independent or whatever, you know, it's just, we're just not as well trained, I don't think, for accommodation. And there's a whole lot of adults too that are getting diagnoses in adulthood that were not available to them as children, right? And and the other thing I guess I would just reflect on, I feel sad for you as an educator when you have a teaching strategy that you feel so good about, and then you feel like you can't use it because of the challenge with the needs for accommodating a single individual, and you want to do that. So it's not negating that individual at all, but at the same time, it's like, how do you, but still be able to do this great teaching thing that you've been doing that has worked and people really love it. And so,
Right.
yeah. And
I'm
maybe
rethinking it. Maybe I'll do my little people now and give it to her ahead of time. And although I don't know, yeah, maybe I'll go back, and we can always go back and redo, right?
That's right. Yeah. Good.
Carissa, would you be willing to share that with us? I love that idea. Would you?
I can share like a picture of it. I could scan it. It's handwritten by a parent educator that I had as a mom and then also student taught with. So it's one of those like history things too. So I don't really have it electronically, but I could scan it and share it out. Yeah. And you could,
if you're okay with it.
Yeah, totally.
It sounds really sweet.
Yeah, it's super cute.
Good. Thank you. Well, speaking of professional development, let's talk about PLCs. So what do PLCs look like where you all are? I know when we've talked about this in the past, and I don't think it's been in the recent past, but and my own experience with different school districts is they do look very different depending on the district. So who would like to share their PLC?
Well, I can talk about what we do. So in Owatonna, right now it's our PLC group is 2 people, me and our early childhood educator, and that is it. And you know, we're supposed to have a SMART goal, which I feel is really tricky in CFE because we don't really, I mean, we do surveys of the parents, but we don't really gather anything from them. So what we're doing this year is actually a book study. We are reading a book together and figuring out how we can implement some of the ideas in the classroom and things that I can share with parents as well. So do we have a goal to use the book for our advantage? That is basically, is it measurable? I will see if we can figure out a way to make it so. That's it. It's not very closely monitored either. So we do what we can.
So can I ask, Julie, how often do you meet, and for how long?
We meet 1 hour every other week, or basically twice a month.
Okay.
We have PLCs here as well. The first couple years that I was here, we had myself, the EC teacher, all of our preschool teachers, and then we had like ECSE, the speech language pathologist, the OT. So it was a very diverse group. It seemed to work the first couple years. And we would have our goals, and I would actually have to determine my goal by the time my first class started, because then in my survey I would say, because we're going to be focusing on collaboration with the preschool team, I need to know what you know about this or whatever. And I would just ask the question. I said, if you don't know, just say please, or I don't know, answer in that way. And then my end of year survey would have the same question so that I could get data. Now the last couple of years have been challenging because our ECSE, our OT, they split off. They're doing a different PLC with, they're hired by like a side company. So they're not in there. So I am the parent educator with all the preschool teachers and one of the early childhood special education teachers that just works with them, the preschoolers. So it's not been going well for me because I'm very left out. I feel like it's a waste of my time, and I have talked to my administrator about it. And we have some brainstorms, which I haven't been able to implement yet because we haven't met since she and I talked. But hopefully it'll start becoming more applicable. I feel like there's a lot of room there for collaboration with the preschool team during that time. I need more of it. Like, they're just kind of doing their preschool world. Like, oh, we need to talk about core advantage and how we're like they go off on their stuff. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter if I'm here or not. We meet every single Wednesday for an hour and 15 minutes. And then now on top of that, they've added a separate meeting that's at that same time. Instead of PLC, we are meeting in these peer review groups. It's a whole long story. They just made it more complicated. So it's really complicated. We have a lot of stuff we have to fill out, submit. I could go on and I won't, but that's how we do it here.
And so you do every Wednesday for an hour and a half?
Hour and 15 minutes.
Hour and 15 with all of those people?
With myself, the preschool teachers, and the one ECSE that works directly here in the building with preschool.
Okay. And now you're starting something else called peer
review teams. Yeah, we on the last Wednesday of the month during that same PLC time, we meet with this other group they've mixed up everybody in the whole school, and we're by our area that we feel most competent in as far as like the standards, like knowledge of students and like your methods and like all those different things that are incorporated in teaching. And we're supposed to kind of this year become sort of experts at observing and telling that teacher what sort of evidence we saw during that observation of that. Like, so if you're in the group that's focusing on teaching methods, like you're just going to try to work on practicing, observing, and finding evidence and telling that teacher what evidence you saw of their, multitude of teaching methods. And so we are split up into, like 5 or 6 groups or whatever it is. And so that meets during that time, and you have to go, I don't know.
Thank you for sharing. Like you said, Susan, there's all different types and all different, everyone's doing something a little different, which is nice because if there's needs that are unique and specific, that's helpful for that group, as long as it's meeting needs, right? So Katie.
Ours is similar to Julie, where now last year there were 2 of us, this year there's 3 because we have another ECFE teacher that just teaches 1 class and she was on maternity leave, now she's back. When I started, we had a parent ed one because there were enough of us, which was lovely and sometimes challenging too. But in our district, in the past, we have the days where you're supposed to spend like half the day in PLC and you're supposed to have all these summer hours. And so everyone else does it a little bit differently than we do because of the way my co-teacher works. We meet an hour once a week, all for like the 28 weeks that we're in class. And it is that goal piece is really challenging. We were just having this, we met yesterday, we meet on Thursdays. So we were just having this question where last year we did this book thing where we kind of gathered book ideas from families of quality literature was kind of our focus. And we gathered ideas and we put together book lists and we introduced families to books, and we felt like it was really useful for us. It like improved our teaching. Families seemed to really like it. It felt worthwhile and valuable. But the goal piece, like what is our goal? How do we measure this was really challenging.
Another thing I could say about the goal, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I've in the same district other years we've had goals that were specific, like we see that there's a lot of parents that don't seem to know how to engage with their children during parent-child time. And so we'll make that a goal. Well, then we re-enroll for winter and spring and everything's different again. So it's like, well, that goal doesn't even fit anymore. It worked for fall, but then we lose what we're working on. So it's setting a goal that starts at the beginning of the year and goes to the end of the year it doesn't fit for ECFE. I don't know if you found the same thing.
That would be really hard, Julie. And like, I didn't even think of it from that perspective. My class is all year long. Like they register and they stay with me the whole year. So that would be really challenging.
Yeah, it makes it feel like, I don't know, just a silly little hoop that we have to jump through, I guess, to me, which is why we chose a book this year. So we can read a book.
Yeah, I love the book idea. And so this year we're focusing on ESIPs and just like the learning, the like wonder, I can't remember, curiosity and wonderment and kind of piece of the ESIP. And it's a lot easier to come up with a SMART goal, but we're going like, who is this useful for? Like, I don't feel like this is improving my teaching. What are the kids and the families aren't getting anything out of this? Like, why? Now we're like, why are we doing this now that we're kind of a little bit into it? Like, how do we make it that way? So that piece between valuable and worthwhile for everyone versus the goal is, I think, extremely challenging in our particular world. Especially if you're following, because most PLCs are set up with K-12 world in mind, right? So, or even preschool, but.
My PLC is, oh, where's my camera? Why am I not on camera? Okay, there we go. Hi. Our PLC is formed for us by our district. We do not get to choose our PLC. And so my PLC this year is myself, my early childhood educator, and our birth to 3 team, which works out really, really well. We share a lot of the same families, but also our goals are similar. So for, like Julie, for you, I came on when I heard you saying it was just 2 of you. If you're able to kind of get in with other people who maybe aren't doing the, parent-child stuff in the classroom, but are doing parent-child stuff at home. And last year, our goal was to get more home-based intervention families involved in ECFE, whether that was having them come to an event, or like a date night with dad, or, even popsicles on the playground, just because sometimes those special ed families are so isolated. And we killed it. I mean, we had like 2 families involved, and by the end we had like 25. So we just destroyed our goal. This year we're doing on mealtime, and like my birth to 3, like, how we all know all about mealtime, like 1 tablespoon per year of age and blah, blah, blah. They're like, okay, but how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know, like 10 years of teaching with toddlers, right? So for our PLC, we did a pre-survey of how do you feel about mealtime? How do you feel about sitting at the table? Like rate your satisfaction, time at the table, number of foods your child tries, amount of food your child eats. And we had parents take a pre-survey, and now we're having them take a post-survey. And we spent a lot of time on talking about mealtime. So we're going to start like piecing out that data here pretty soon. But parents seem to really appreciate that. And now we're also making a handout, like a 2-page handout of just stuff that I've had up here that just needs to come out on paper so that we can provide that to families who are looking for like, how much should my child be eating, right? How do we get our child to eat more? So, and I'm
So
just,
Ellen,
yeah.
do you work, so mealtime is your thing, do you touch on mealtime throughout your classes throughout?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, beyond what just sort of naturally comes up or as a
Yep.
topic?
So I spent a week on it. So I gave them the survey. We spent a week on it, a full week across all classes. And then the next week I said, I want you guys to just go home, let this ruminate, think about how mealtime is going, think about things we talked about. And then the next week we came back. I don't often go back to the previous week because we got stuff to talk about. People will be like, oh, I had a thing and I wanted to bring it back up. But then I was like, what changed this week because of our conversation last week? And they're like, oh my gosh, I've got so much. So then we would go back to it again. And anytime it came up, I'd be like, yeah, let's talk about it. So I feel like we revisited mealtime more often this fall than we maybe had in the past. So it worked out really well, I think. And it's going to be interesting to see what they come back. But yeah, we hit it hard. And I let it keep coming back.
So did you develop the survey the year before, or how did you get that survey done in the fall at the beginning?
We created it. Oh, my computer wants to keep updating. We created it as a PLC this fall.
So you created it this fall.
Yep. I gave it to them like week 3,
Oh,
week
okay.
4 maybe. But we also PLC, we meet every week for an hour.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So we have a little bit more time every week for an hour. So, but do you want me to send you the survey? I'm happy to send it to you.
We love your stuff, Ellen, of course.
Just don't do the survey because you'll skew my results.
Just don't do it. Okay. I don't want to be faced with my meal times currently with no children in the house. That's really bad. So no.
But our goal is very like, and we get feedback from, so we have an overarching like world's best workforce goal. And then we have a building goal, and our building goal is, so every child's ready for kindergarten, blah, blah, blah. Right. I'm sorry, mealtime, you can't. And so we got snarky feedback back from the curriculum and development. Like, we don't see how this ties in with the building goal. And we're like, okay, sorry, but kindergarten readiness, I'm sorry. We can all make a case for mealtime and nutrition, right? Like, yeah. So we just ignored that comment. We're like, you know what? We're ECF, we're early childhood. Like we're not going to be able to fit into, Haggerty or whatever things that preschool can. So you have to advocate for yourself. And so what we're saying is, oh no, but it does fit in actually. Yeah. Just not in the way that you guys want it to.
I was gonna say, I hope you guys said social emotional, like hello.
Language, all sorts of, like you said,
exactly.
Brain development.
Fine motor, hello, eating.
Come watch us. Come to us and watch us. See what it is.
Well, and actually we had someone from the district office. She's kind of our curriculum and development. They've been going around and visiting us. Like we get visits. And she was like, wait, what are you doing your PLC on? And we're like, oh, mealtime. And she's like, so like you're working with parents on feeding their kids. And we're like, yeah. And she goes, she's like, granted, I'm a grandma now. She's like, I just fed my kids, but there are issues. And we're like, yeah. And she goes, can I share this with the district once your data comes out? We're like, yes. Because like, so sometimes you have to get it into the skulls of people who don't realize that this is what we're in all the time. And yeah, guess what? We're not talking about letters here. We're talking about getting our parents to have good relationships with their kids around the dinner table. Like, yeah, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but don't be afraid to go to your district and be like, no, this is our PLC goal, because this is what parents are super stressed about. All right, I'm gonna go get the survey.
Ellen, I have a quick question though. So like, because you said you're with like the early childhood, it's you and like an early childhood teacher and stuff. So how do you, because that's a lot of parent ed, which I think is amazing, but then like, what is the early childhood teacher's role?
Well, I mean, she's
just sort of supportive.
Screening. She does all of our screening too.
Okay.
And then, but her role, I mean, she just helps with that too. Parents are always bringing things up for
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So does it really fit what she's doing? kind of not really. But also
Right.
she's getting all this good stuff too. And so she can reiterate it to families.
Okay.
She can
And
help families.
she feels good about like what you guys
Totally.
are,
Yeah.
because that's a
totally.
tricky part too, which I think it's beautiful that because same, we're
Yeah.
working together, we teach all our classes together. Of course, we should be
Okay, good.
PLCing
I just
together.
wasn't-
But then sometimes it is tricky, like how do you both have a meaningful role in it? So that was just okay. I mean, and I get, yeah, she certainly does. I'm not.
Totally. Yeah. And she's also not picky. She's like, okay, like sure. What's she gonna, yeah, yeah.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was Piccolo. Have you guys seen the Piccolo tool for parent-child interaction? You can measure warmth, connection. I'll find the link. I used it in my previous district, but that is a really, really nice tool to use if you don't have a PLC. It's called the Piccolo Family Instrument. Hang on, I'll find it.
That years ago. It's been around for a while, right, Ellen?
Yeah, it's not new. I mean, it's probably 10 years old, but still there's still a lot. It's not super well known.
No.
And
Or well forgotten. Like
well
at one
forgotten.
time, but totally forgotten.
Well, and gosh, I'm doing a Google search and I'm not finding it. What? Well, I have a scan of it. If anybody wants it, I'll send it. It's probably copyright infringement, but
Laura, did you say what your PLCs look like there in Osseo?
I can share a little bit. I mean, I'm new in this position, but I would say Osseo has a very robust program, longstanding. I think they were one of the first districts to get on, 15 years ago when the money was available. But it also seems overly complicated. So we have our building goal, and we have to have our PLC goal aligned, or we have to have a student learning goal aligned to the building goal that we do our PLC around. We have to have a professional growth plan. There's 3 acronyms: PGP, SLG, and something else. And as I'm hearing from all of you, you're meeting 1 hour a week. We're meeting 1 hour a month at the most. And we do get to pick our own groups. Half the parent educators are doing a book study and incorporating things, and another parent educator and I are focusing on home visiting. But it's really hard to, like you've all said, make what we do fit into the expectations at the district level. And there's a lot of support, but there's just a lot of rules about how to do what we do and how to jump through the hoops to do the process.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Ellen, it started because we just started PLCs this year for ECFE included, and we're doing it just the 2 teams. So it's just 4 of us. There's 2 parent educators, 2 early childhood educators, but we were given a form, and the form is like with the questions to be answered. And it's like, so what do we want our students to learn? How will we know what each student has learned, that each student has learned? How will we respond if they don't learn it? How will we extend and enrich the learning if they already know it? And then how will we increase our instructional expertise? And we just haven't quite, as 2 teams with early childhood and parent ed, it's just been really kind of tricky to figure out exactly what we want to do. We just picked, let's talk about emotions, let's get shared language on emotions. And it's been okay, but it's hard to do the measuring part. I think because we're brand new to this, I don't have a clue what they're wanting. So that's why I asked for the group to share. Thank you, everybody, for what you did share. And what if you want to keep talking, that's great, but it's really insightful. And we do a 1.5 hour every other week or twice a month. So 1 hour a month, kind of like you, Laura. Yeah. So an hour a week, hour and 15 minutes a week on every Wednesday.
Yeah,
That's
cry for me,
amazing.
please.
Wow.
Greta, I was just gonna say, when we first did this, or when I first came into it, it was super hard to connect. We've gotten a little better at the goals connecting, like some of the years we did, like, they would say by some percentage, they wanted their students to increase their letter recognition. Well, then I, like, one year taught the parents about how you can help your child with learning their letters at home. And, you know, so
Okay.
sometimes, like, there is ways, but then sometimes I had to, like, after we had done that a few times and they wanted to continue using the same goal every year, I'm like, I'm not teaching the parents the same thing every year. So then I would kind of have to go out on my own as far as what I wanted to help as far as increase in learning. So
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just put in chat myself, I'd be interested in that measurement part, you know, because I mean, it's not at all uncommon that professional development is a good idea, but it's not well quantified from the standpoint of, is it really, you know, is it really that valuable? And I think across the board, most people would say it is valuable, but not necessarily for what you might be thinking you're measuring. So just like with any teaching, like maybe you think that you're changing skills, you're affecting knowledge, when really what a PLC may be doing is bringing people closer together and helping them feel more connected as a learning community or as a professional community. And that's not a bad thing, right? To doing your work. But if it is knowledge-based, if it's skills-based, are those knowledges and skills really being measured as a result of those weekly or monthly or whatever meetings? And if they are, where does that data go? Like, does that sit in your school district, or does the school district somehow bump that up to MDE for like extra brownie points or something? So yeah, I'd be really interested to see what happens with all that.
Is this something that with the new positions that might be looked at
Oh, who knows?
as far as resourcing our PLCs district-wide? Okay.
You know, I think there should be some sort of for every time in our conversations, we've had you know, is that something that the new state positions are going to do? You know, like we could start a whole list and then just send it, you know, like I'll drive it over to the building in Roseville, you know, and say the perfect connections. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, here we've got a nice list for you of all the things that the educators around the state are really hoping that you're going to do.
you can just create their list of job responsibilities, right?
That's right. That's right.
I agree with you, Susan. There's like so many positives that can come from PLC, and I definitely think it's very valuable when it can be utilized, and, you know, when you can apply it, utilize it, you know, those things are super important, I think. And if that's not happening, it feels kind of not important, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes my fear with those things too are like, who's in charge in a way that truly facilitates an effective learning community. And because I've also witnessed in a variety of settings, not ECFE alone, but where that process can get bogged down into, you're supposed to have this form, or this form is supposed to be filled out, and then whatever. And honest to God, I've seen entire PLC meetings or professional development meetings like spent on how is this form supposed to be filled out, and who signs this form, and where does this go? And well, I filled it out last time, but I'm not really sure. And like, then you're looking at your watch and it's, you know, 55 minutes have gone by talking about process. And that's where people start like tapping their feet going, really, is this a good use of my time? Right. And it's to nobody's fault, but it's just like, but I think there's sometimes is an assumption by administrators that people are going to know what to do. Like, you're giving them this time, you're giving them this space to develop professionally, and they've chosen a topic, or they've chosen these goals, let them go with it. Right. But then whoever is in charge of facilitating might not really know or be all that effective at it, you know? So again, well-meaning systems and variable results.
Or if you have groups, because when we had a parent ed one, which was lovely, we had 6 of us, but we had a couple very stuck on following the rules of PLC, and a couple who would get very frustrated and just be like, it doesn't matter. We just need to make it work for us and we can do whatever we want. And so we spent a lot of time in that. So that can be tricky too.
Yeah. Well, we're here at the end of our hour. Katie, I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about holiday topics. But is it okay if we talk about them next week? Will you be here? Okay, we'll start that up, and that will also give you a week to take a great picture of the Grinch and the whole display that the person in your office is doing such a bang up job over. So final things before anything else you guys want to talk about next week? Like, I'll make a little note. So we start next week and we talk about those two.
Just really quickly, Katie, Big Little Feelings put out a holiday type of thing. Oh, I have it in my head. I'll try to remember. But if you go up to Big Little Feelings, they put together a holiday thing. Prep for the holiday. How do we prep ourselves? How do we prep our children? How do we prep? It was really well done.
On Instagram, or do they have a website or?
Instagram, but I get their stuff sent to my inbox, my personal inbox, just so I can kind of watch it. So, but I'm sure you'd find it on their site or Instagram. Ellen, do you follow Big Little Feelings? Okay, yeah, it's out there. It was nice. It has a lot of,
I'll check it out. Thank you. I do love them. Yeah.
It was a nice one.
Is that Big Little Feelings, like all one word?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There it is.
Wonderful.
They have a whole thing on Elf on the Shelf. They hate, well, all the parenting people on Instagram hate Elf on the Shelf. And rightly so, if it's used incorrectly. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
So can we next week talk about Elf on the Shelf? I feel so behind because Elf on the Shelf was never part of my upbringing. Maybe it's because, I don't know, is it a Minnesota thing? But it's not. I didn't think it was. But I have to say, like, in the last 10 years, as I've been around with the ECFE community and then the world in general, I've seen all this stuff on Elf on the Shelf, and especially these polarized views about it. And it's just like, do I want to know what's going on here? So
at what point do I have that much vested interest in this polarized topic, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if there's a bunch of educators that are kind of against it, then I want to know, is it why? So
we'll add that to the list. It depends on how it's being used.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Well, we'll talk about Elf on the Shelf as little as we need to next week, but that will be something we'll talk about with a holiday theme. And maybe that'll be our homework, is to come back with a great, it's whatever you teach in these classes and, around the holidays, something to contribute. So we have a bit of a list. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
And for what was in the chat.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful PLC. So I agree with what was said in the chat. So this is beautiful. And this is doing so much. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Greta.
Yes.
And Sandy, yes, to answer your question, I wasn't paying attention to that, but that is it. That's the Piccolo, Brooks Publishing or whatever. You found it. And what we did, we just ordered one packet. Now we made copies.
Oh, well, that was on tape. That would be the Northfield School.
Come after me, Brooks Publishing. Yeah.
Love you, Brooks. We love you.
We love you. You're the best.
You've got our money. Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Everyone, take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.